The Diplomat, 4th of January 2024, is a new development in China-India relations possible in 2024? China is currently fighting a full-scale war in the Himalayas against the Indian subcontinent. China is attempting to divert attention from the sea and the Indian Ocean, threatening China. In terms of China-India relations, 2023 was a year of unfulfilled hopes. The two sides' long-expected thaw did not occur, and the tense situation on their disputed border, which started when a bloody military conflict broke out in 2020, persisted. However, there was some relationship stabilization in 2023, which bodes well for the future. Not only did the two sides express interest in resuming some normalcy in their ties and exploring finding a solution to the border standoff, but their highly militarized frontier has stayed relatively quiet over the past year. Expectations marked the spring and summer of 2023 for a thaw in China-India ties that would stabilize the border, bring relations back to normal, and allow some cooperation between Beijing and Delhi. The backdrop appeared favorable with momentum from the 2022 handshake and brief exchange between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the G20 summit in Indonesia, disengagement in 5 border areas, and the swift and quiet resolution of the border clash at Yangtze in December 2022. As part of India's hosting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the defense and foreign ministers of the two sides met and discussed border tensions. The 19th round of Corps commander-level talks agreed that the sides should resolve the remaining issues they disagreed on expeditiously. The likelihood of a breakthrough increased when China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi and India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval discussed disengagement in the two remaining areas of current border tensions ahead of their respective leaders' scheduled meetings. Xi and Modi reviewed relations in person at the BRICS conference in Johannesburg, where The Economist had declared it détente between China and India. They decided to intensify efforts at expeditious disengagement and de-escalation, according to the Indian side. But the impending thaw never happened. Xi did not attend the September G20 conference in Delhi, and the border negotiations have not yet generated a breakthrough. The failure to reach a consensus on the two armies' total retirement from the border, the creation of buffer zones between them, and the locations of withdrawal points was most likely the immediate cause of this failed thaw. Deeper down, the failed thaw underscores the core problems that have strained ties between China and India, such as the US-India alliance against Beijing, their rivalry in the military, and China's increasing influence in South Asia as it gains traction in Bhutan and the Maldives. In general, mistrust had grown due to China and India's rivalry, and it was made worse in 2023 when India overtook China as the world's most populous country. Not to mention, the approaches taken by both parties in their relationship make a breakthrough more challenging. New Delhi has determined that ties won't be unfrozen until China has made significant border concessions and, ideally, has returned to the pre-2020 status quo. Beijing has used a two-pronged approach to mending relations with India, simultaneously applying pressure on it along the border and in South Asia and engaging with it. Under pressure from its actions and fed up with the unsustainable status quo, China aims to force India to normalize relations at Beijing's expense without significant border concessions from China. Both tactics lessen the possibility of compromise and turn talks into a contest of wills. It's not all terrible news, either. Additionally, the recent trend toward the stability of China-Indian relations continued in 2023. Most notably, in stark contrast to the 3 years prior, there has been no further escalation or conflict along the disputed boundary throughout the past year. The relative quiet around the line of actual control, the de facto border, suggests that both Beijing and New Delhi aim to de-escalate the border situation and resolve the military and political crisis that erupted in 2020, despite the tense situation between the two militaries deployed close to the border persisting, especially in the western sector where a military standoff continues. In addition, there is active communication between the two parties on the tight situation on the disputed boundary and their problematic relationship. This has occurred between the two nations' senior leaders and their armed forces and diplomatic services. The 28th round of talks, a component of the Working Mechanism for Consultation and Coordination on India-China Border Affairs, was the most recent in the ongoing negotiations to stabilize the border. While talks don't always succeed, there seems to be a growing momentum toward border stabilization and a return to some degree of normalcy based on their heightened intensity in the past year and the wording of both sides' public declarations. With all this, there is some chance for better relations in 2024. In addition to the momentum in negotiations, it appears that the global environment is more conducive to normalizing China-India relations, given the recent strain in ties between the US and India, China's efforts to strengthen its standing internationally through increased engagement, and the limited thaw in relations between Beijing and Washington. Naturally, a relationship improvement of this magnitude will unlikely occur until after this year's Indian legislative elections. It isn't peculiar, but it would only partially restore normalcy even if it happens. Rewinding to 2019 would be challenging because the past 4 years have significantly impacted ties and heightened Sino-Indian antagonism. In conclusion, 2023 was a year that many had hoped would see a warming in relations between China and India but were let down. But the year that was coming to an end also had a bright side. It saw increased diplomatic efforts and negotiations pick up speed, which boded well for 2024. Will China-Indian relations turn a new corner in the coming year, or will we see more disappointments?